Thousands of flights, millions of passengers trying to get home, trying to get to a wedding, maybe even a funeral, and air traffic controllers working and doing it all for free. You've all seen and heard the headlines. We know what's going on. My name's Tim Kiefer, and I am a former air traffic controller of 22 years. I retired at the end of last year. I worked at Chicago Center, worked at O'Hare Tower, I worked in Las Vegas Tower. I also worked Oshkosh, so I got a lot of air traffic experience. I also was in the Navy. I wasn't a controller in the Navy. I was an avionics technician. Worked for a bunch of different airlines, and of course, I am a private pilot, so go figure. Now I'm an assistant professor teaching air traffic control students, so I haven't gotten out of the career completely. I just decided to go train them instead. In fact, I have decades of training experience. During my career, when I was with the FAA, I was involved in recurrent training for the FAA. I logged over 1,000 hours as an on-the-job training instructor. In fact, I think I've done everything in aviation except be a flight attendant. And trust me, that was probably the best. It's probably for your safety, because who wants me walking through the airplane with drinks and everything? That could have been a problem. So the purpose of this channel, though, is to give you, the viewer, a controller's perspective of events in aviation and air traffic control. Explain how the system actually works. But in the end, there are other items that I think sometimes pilots don't even know that happen on the other end of the mic. So hopefully we'll be able to do that. We're going to humanize air traffic control through real stories, my stories included, as well as current events. This channel is called Normal Freaks. Now, when a controller is working and there are sectors that are combined or positions that are combined, sometimes they have to do it at one frequency. And then when they open those sectors or positions, they let everybody know that they're at normal freaks, normal frequencies. Well, nothing is normal these days, or we've created a new normal. It's important for us to get back to normal freaks, back to as normal as we can, meaning that air traffic controllers are staffed and manning the skies so they're not overworked or stressed. And these things like government shutdowns, let me tell you, it adds way more to the stress level as you would ever even imagine. Because air traffic controllers, as well as like TSA agents and others, are considered essential, or what the government calls expected. So what does that mean? They're an expected employee. And controllers will eventually get paid, but right now, they're not getting anything. In fact, we're going to look at the air traffic control pay, because I think a lot of people don't realize there's things out there that we talk about or on the news where air traffic controllers can make hundreds of thousands of dollars. And yeah, if you look at the base pay, the highest air traffic controller, their base pay without any locality could make up to $175,000 a year. Now that's the high of the high, okay? I don't know if you saw those low numbers, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the locality pay, or I should say I'm going to bring in a chart that has locality pay, and this is the Chicago area. So you could see the Chicago area it's a little bit higher. It can go all the way up to $220,000, but there are at least, I think, 5 different facilities in Chicago at different levels, and these pays, the pay scale is based on the level of air traffic control facility you work. So you've got a bunch of different levels, and if we look at that pay scale again, if you're a brand new controller that started at DuPage Airport or Aurora Airport, $82,000 a year, you start at, $60,000 a year. When you walk in the door, you're bumped up to $82,000, and then you can make up to $121,000, but that's based off of how long you have been there. Now, that's a very good starting salary for somebody who is just starting a new job. However, think about this if now they're not getting any money, okay? If you've been doing it a while, you've been able to save, great. But if you've only been a controller for a year or two, now you don't have this extra money perhaps to pay the mortgage, to pay your car bills or whatever they may be. And that's where the stress comes in. Now, let me show you another pay. This is Hawaii. Now you can see Hawaii, they their pay can sometimes be just a little bit higher depending on what's going on. But can you imagine if you were a controller that had to go work at, let's say, Maui, and you're starting there? That could hurt you when you're not even getting a paycheck if you just started. So I don't think people realize a lot of times that air traffic control pay, yes, it can be a very good profession. It's a very good career. However, it just doesn't start out that way. And then when you throw in this government shutdown, into the mix, things can get even worse. So just understand that everybody is making zero right now. Like I said, all those payments, mortgage, car, how about childcare? So you still have to pay the babysitter and go to work, but you're not getting a paycheck yet. Now, hopefully this will all be taken care of before they miss a paycheck, but that's coming up. So just understand that this leads to that stress, that mental fatigue, and then what that turns into is sick leave. Yeah, sick leave, because there is no leave during a government shutdown. So when you call in sick because you're fatigued or you have mental fatigue based off of trying to pay your bills, you're not put on a leave status. You're put on a furlough status. So it's kind of interesting. Controllers actually, it's easier for them to call in sick during a government shutdown because they don't get counted for their sick leave. Now, there was a story going out, and there's always rumors going out that maybe those controllers will be shown the door and be let go. But it's not that simple. There are continuing things that you need to do, or progressive discipline is what it's called. If you're sick, you're sick. If you are not mentally able to go and talk to airplanes, government shutdown or not, you're probably not going to come to work. We do have these sick leaves, these controllers who are not there, creating issues with staffing, which, let me tell you, issues with staffing have been there even before the government shutdown. Air traffic controllers at an all-time low. And yeah, that's a headline, it's a talking point, but it's the truth. And because of that, every day there is a staffing trigger, it seems like, that will slow down the traffic. In fact, I'm going to show you the FAA status board. And you can actually get this online, believe it or not. You can go see this. And this is just a snapshot. I think this from October 9th, midday, what's going on. You can see what is happening in the national airspace, what airports are affected and why. Well, many times you will see staffing as one of the issues there, and it's a staffing trigger, and that's what causes delays. Because what happens now is that, I'm sitting in the traffic management department, and what they do is they send out all these messages to slow the aircraft down, which means we stay on the ground and we have increased mile and trail up high, which slows that down. And then as airspace saturation points get reduced based off of the amount of controllers available to work, thus cancellation, increased delays, and in the end, you don't get to where you need to get to because air traffic control system, unfortunately, is not able to nail it based off of what's going on. So understand that shutdown is more than missed paychecks, okay? It has to do with other things because the FAA will also eventually stop training at the academy. This just creates a worse problem with our staffing shortage in the air traffic control system. And it also lowers morale, and it definitely increases burnout. So remember, this isn't a politics thing. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. This is about people. This is about safety. This is about making sure that airplanes in the air do not hit one another. Airplanes on the ground do not hit one another. And you get to your location, your cruise, your bar mitzvahs, whatever it might be, as fast and efficient as possible. Because in the end, air traffic control is invisible. You will only notice it when it breaks. So the purpose of this channel, hopefully you haven't tuned off yet, is to help you out there, the viewer or whoever, understand this invisible system. So make sure you subscribe, you hit that ring the bell, so you stay tuned, because we're just getting started here on Normal Freaks, because we're going to break down everything aviation. Everything air traffic, not just government shutdowns. We got way more. So thank you for watching, and tell your friends and tell your aviation enthusiasts. I guess I'm an aviation nerd. I mean, shoe fits, wear it. We're going to tell some real stories and explain real aviation. So stay safe, stay patient, and the next time your flight is delayed, remember, someone out there, I guess not me anymore, it used to be me, but someone out there is keeping you safe. Until next time, Tim Kiefer, Normal Freaks, we'll catch you then.